The story we present today is as disturbing as it is heartbreaking. It is a tale that began with a seemingly perfect family and ended with two sisters imprisoned, their lives completely devastated. But how did it get to that point? What family dynamics could have allowed something so inconceivable to happen? Today we will explore how a forbidden and destructive obsession forever shattered a family. This is the story of the Martinez family, a middle-class family from a small town called San Jose del Campo, in the state of Puebla, Mexico. It was 2015 when tragedy began to unfold. Parents Clara and Francisco Martinez, both in their mid-40s, had been married for 22 years. Clara was a teacher at the village primary school, a kind and motherly woman. Francisco, for his part, worked as a mechanic at a nearby garage. Both were known to be hardworking, dedicated, and deeply committed to their daughters, Camila, 20, and Valeria, 18. From the outside, the Martinezes were the picture of a happy, close-knit family. Their neighbors described them as the perfect family. On weekends, it was common to see them gathered in the garden, preparing barbecue, laughing and enjoying time together. But beneath this idyllic facade, a story was brewing that would defy all social and moral norms. Camila and Valeria grew up inseparable. From childhood, their connection was evident. They were playmates, confidants, and in many ways, best friends. Clara used to say that her daughters were as thick as thieves, and Francisco joked that they even understood each other just by looking at each other. However, as happens in many families, the dynamics began to change as the girls grew older. During their teenage years, both developed markedly different personalities. Camila, the eldest, was outgoing, sociable, and adventurous. She was known for her charisma and her ability to make friends easily. On the other hand, Valeria was more reserved, introspective, and shy, which often made her emotionally dependent on her older sister. As the years went by, the relationship between the sisters became more complex. Although they remained close, their connection began to have nuances that seemed, to outsiders, somewhat unusual. According to close friends, Camila and Valeria had an overly clingy relationship. They held hands frequently, hugged in public more than was typical, and exchanged endearing words that often crossed the line between sisterly and romantic. It was during the summer of 2015 that this closeness began to intensify. The family had planned a trip to Acapulco, where they would spend a week at the beach. During that trip, Clara noticed something strange. The girls spent most of their time together, isolated from the rest of the family. Although Clara tried to rationalize it as a sign of the bond between sisters, a concern began to grow inside her. Back in San Jose del Campo, things began to change. Camila and Valeria spent more and more time alone in their room. They closed the door, something they had not done before, and became evasive when asked what they did together. Clara, who had always had a close relationship with her daughters, began to feel excluded. Francisco, for his part, didn't think much of it. He thought it was just a matter of age and that the girls simply needed their space. "Leave them alone, Clara. It's normal. They're growing up," he would say. However, for Clara, the growing closeness between the sisters felt increasingly disturbing. One time, while tidying the girls' room, Clara found a notebook that belonged to Valeria. When she opened it, she found drawings and notes that left her frozen. The drawings showed Camila and Valeria in situations that were clearly not typical for sisters. There were words like eternal love and you and me against the world, written among hearts and flowers. Clara decided not to say anything at the time, believing that perhaps she was overreacting. She thought it was just a passing phase and that the girls would grow out of it. But things were far from resolved. In the months that followed, the relationship between the sisters continued to evolve in ways that Clara and Francisco could not understand. The girls began to be away more often, going out together without telling each other where they were going. When they were home, they would lock themselves in their room for hours, and arguments between them and their parents became more frequent. On September 15, 2015, during a family celebration for Independence Day, something happened that left everyone baffled. While in the living room, Valeria hugged Camila and kissed her on the cheek in a way that Clara described as too intimate. Although the other family members didn't seem to notice, for Clara it was a clear sign that something was not right. Determined to understand what was happening, Clara began to pay more attention to her daughter's behavior. It would not take long for her to discover a secret that would change the fate of the Martinez family forever. The year 2016 began with a tense atmosphere in the Martinez household. Although Clara had not yet directly confronted her daughters about her suspicions, her motherly intuition told her that something out of the ordinary was going on. Camila and Valeria were still extremely close, but now that closeness seemed more evident and, at the same time, more secret. Valeria, the younger sister, was developing an obsession with Camila that went beyond what could be considered a sisterly relationship. Her emotional dependence on her sister intensified every day, and her attempts to keep her close bordered on controlling. Although Camila, at first, seemed more relaxed about it, she also began to participate in this peculiar relationship. It all started with small gestures. Valeria, who had always been shy and reserved, began to show jealousy of Camila's friendships. If her older sister went out with friends, Valeria did everything she could to interrupt or sabotage those plans. When she didn't achieve her goal, she would lock herself in her room for hours, often crying or texting Camila insistently to come home. Camila, accustomed to taking care of her sister, began to give in to her demands. She left her friends aside and spent more time with Valeria, to the point of almost completely isolating herself from the rest of the world. Valeria, for her part, interpreted this as a sign of love and began to reinforce the idea that they only had each other. By the summer of 2016, the relationship between the sisters had already crossed lines that no one in the family could have imagined. According to later revelations during the investigation, it was Valeria who took the initiative. On a seemingly innocent night, while the two were watching a movie in their room, Valeria confessed that she felt something more than sisterly love for Camila. Camila, though surprised, did not immediately reject her sister. Confused and perhaps influenced by the intense emotional connection they had always shared, she began to reciprocate Valeria's gestures of affection. What began with longer hugs and deep gazes soon evolved into something more physical. The most disturbing thing about this situation was how easily both sisters normalized what was happening. In their minds, they convinced themselves that there was nothing wrong with their relationship, that it was a unique and special display of love that no one else could understand. On September 22, 2016, Clara made a discovery that left her completely devastated. She had come home early from work and noticed the girls were in their room, with the door closed. Thinking they were perhaps studying or watching a movie, she decided to go in to ask them if they needed anything. What she saw when she opened the door left her speechless. Camila and Valeria were in bed, embracing in a way that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Clara was paralyzed, unable to process what she was seeing. Realizing that their mother had discovered them, both sisters tried to justify what had happened, but their explanations only made the situation worse. Clara left the room crying and called Francisco to come home immediately. When Francisco arrived, he found Clara in a state of shock. At first, he couldn't believe what his wife was telling him. But when they confronted the girls, Camila and Valeria didn't deny it. They admitted what was happening and, even more shockingly, they defended it as something natural. Desperate for a solution, Clara and Francisco decided to seek professional help. They took the girls to a family psychologist in the city of Puebla, hoping that a specialist could get their relationship back on track and return the family to a certain normality. The therapy sessions did not go as expected. While Francisco was open to the psychologist's recommendations, Clara was emotionally devastated, unable to understand how her family had gotten to this point. Camila and Valeria, on the other hand, were defiant and reluctant to accept that what they were doing was inappropriate. After several failed sessions, the psychologist suggested that they separate the sisters temporarily. Perhaps physical distance could help dispel the obsession and re-establish a healthier relationship. However, this suggestion was met with strong resistance from the girls, who could not conceive of being separated. After months of trying to resolve the situation without success, Clara and Francisco made a drastic decision. In December 2016, with pain reflected in every word, they told their daughters that they could no longer live under the same roof. If Camila and Valeria did not agree to change, they would have to leave home. It was a heartbreaking decision for the parents, but they believed it was the only way to preserve the emotional stability of the family. However, this measure did not have the expected effect. Camila and Valeria, now without a home or financial support, launched themselves into a life that would lead them down a path of self-destruction. In January 2017, Camila and Valeria found themselves facing a reality they never imagined. Aged just 20 and 18 respectively, the sisters were thrown out of their family home, carrying with them little more than a backpack with clothes and some savings they had managed to scrape together from temporary jobs. They spent the first night at the bus terminal in Puebla. They had no concrete plan, but they were both determined to stay together. Camila, who had always been the more charismatic, convinced Valeria that they could find a solution. "We have always come out ahead, you and I against the world," she repeated to calm her down. Days turned into weeks, and their situation was rapidly deteriorating. They tried to find work, but without experience or a stable place to live, opportunities were limited. Their relationship, which until then had been a source of mutual support, began to become an emotional burden. Constant disagreements and the stress of their situation led them to argue more frequently. Desperate to survive, the sisters began to frequent dangerous social circles. On one of their nights out on the street, they met a group of young people who made a living from petty theft and illicit activities. Initially, Camila was reluctant to get involved, but Valeria, always dependent on her sister, convinced her that it was her only option. That's how, in March 2017, Camila and Valeria began to participate in petty thefts in the commercial area of Puebla. At first, they limited themselves to discreet thefts in convenience stores, but they quickly found themselves drawn into more serious crimes. Under the influence of their new companions, they began to rob small businesses and get involved in the sale of stolen goods. For the sisters, this life was not only a way to survive, but also a way to maintain their relationship in an environment where no one would judge them. However, the adrenaline and initial excitement soon gave way to a feeling of emptiness and constant danger. August 15, 2017 marked the beginning of the end for the Martinez sisters. That night, together with two of their new accomplices, they decided to rob a jewelry store in downtown Puebla. The plan seemed simple: enter, threaten the manager and escape with the jewelry before the police arrived. However, things did not go as they expected. The shopkeeper, a 50-year-old man, resisted the assault. In the midst of the struggle, one of the sisters' accomplices pulled out a gun and fired, seriously wounding the man. The sound of the shot alerted passers-by and, minutes later, the police arrived at the scene. Camila and Valeria tried to escape, but were arrested just a few blocks from the jewelry store. The evidence against them was overwhelming: security cameras, witnesses, and the stolen jewelry they were carrying. The trial was a media event in Puebla. The story of the Martinez sisters, their forbidden relationship and their life of crime, captured the public's attention. Prosecutors quickly built a solid case, presenting evidence and witnesses linking them to the robbery and shooting. During the trial, the relationship between the sisters came to light, adding a sensational element to the case. The media focused more on their relationship than on the crimes, describing them as the sisters who broke all taboos. Finally, in December 2017, Camila and Valeria were sentenced to 10 years in prison for aggravated robbery and complicity in attempted murder. Their accomplices received similar sentences. The sentence also marked the end of their obsessive relationship. Sent to different prisons, the sisters were forced to separate for the first time in years. According to later reports, both suffered from bouts of severe depression during the first months of their incarceration. During their time in prison, both Camila and Valeria began to reflect on the events that led them to that point. In letters they wrote to their parents, they both expressed remorse for the decisions they made and the harm they caused to the family. However, they never stopped justifying their relationship as a manifestation of misunderstood love. Clara and Francisco, for their part, never fully recovered from the tragedy. Although they tried to rebuild their lives, the pain of losing their daughters in this way marked them forever. In 2022, after serving 5 years of her sentence, Camila was released for good behavior. Valeria, being a minor at the time of the trial, received a reduction in her sentence and was also released shortly after. Although both tried to get back in touch, their relationship was never the same. The story of Camila and Valeria Martinez is a testament to how family ties can be distorted in unimaginable ways. What began as a bond of love and mutual support ended in a destructive obsession that ruined not only their lives, but that of their family as well. This tragic story reminds us of the importance of recognizing the warning signs in family relationships and seeking professional help before it is too late. In the end, obsession and isolation only lead to destruction, leaving a trail of pain and regret that is impossible to erase.